I came to photography by kind of a backwards way. I began life not as a photographer, as just a guy who took pictures sometimes. I was a salesman in the clothing business, and I had several other jobs that did not work out very well. And suddenly, in 1984, I was 32 years old, and I was unemployed again. So it's like, what do I do with my life? I've failed 3 times. Maybe I should do something that I actually like to do. And so I went crazy, and with the encouragement of someone I was seeing at the time, she said, maybe you should think about being a photographer. And I said, yeah, I'll be a photographer. I had no idea what I was doing. I was completely ignorant. But I went to a party, and a friend of a friend who had run a very important photographic school in Louisville, Kentucky, where I was living in America, said, "You want to be a photographer? You're crazy. Don't do it. You should not be a photographer unless you can do nothing else." And he was right. I could not do anything else. I had to be a photographer. So I went forth into the world and proceeded to be very hungry for about 2 years. And it was buy photographic paper or eat. And you have to make the decision to buy the photographic paper so you will eat next week. And then hope you have some kind friends who might be nice to you when you drop in about 5 o'clock. But I worked very hard. I went to the library, which became one of my first clients, was the library system. They couldn't pay very much, but then again, I wasn't very good, so it was, fair. But I went through, I did not read all of it, but I went through the entire photographic collection of the public library system of Louisville, Kentucky, because I was working in the library all the time. So I just ate photographic books. I didn't have to have them home because they were all there and they were free. And that was my education, and making lots of mistakes, doing every possible photographic mistake I made at least 3 times. So I knew how to do it well. But I learned. I had some lucky breaks where people I knew Louisville is a fairly small but cultured city. And I began to do public relations pictures. And that was really my start. And really my main practice has been public relations or portraits and performing arts. And from that, my career grew. I became well known. I became busy. I had to bring my skills up very quickly because I was hungry, and that made me really focused. And eventually, my first big gig, my first big job was I was brought in by a friend as the number 3 guy on the Kentucky Derby Festival, which just happened, which is the biggest event in the entire region every year. And all the corporations in town sponsored events. And they all saw me down front working, and then they saw the pictures. So later, when I would say, "Oh, Mr. Kentucky Fried Chicken," because they were there. "Oh, Mr. Hospital Company. Oh, Mr. Bank. Here are my pictures. Could you, hire me, please, as a photographer?" And they would say, "Oh, Richard, welcome in. We know you. It's okay. We know your pictures. You're good." And then they said, "Yeah, we'll keep you in mind," and I'd leave a card. Or sometimes they would say, "Yes, of course, Richard. Oh, we know your pictures, but we use Pat, or we use John, or we use Christina." And say, "Oh, they're all really good photographers, but they're busy, and that's why you use them, is because they're good and they're busy. But if you cannot get a hold of them when you need someone in a hurry, here's my card, call me." And eventually, I became the number 2 photographer to enough people that I was busy all the time. And then I was earning a living, and I became pretty well known in that area in Louisville, Kentucky. And had a good career, was as busy as I could be. I could pay my bills, pay taxes, keep gas in the car, and keep my belly full. And so that was pretty good. And I did that for 12 or 13 years. And what I'm known for now is an outgrowth of that. Because public relations photography, especially for corporations, is to make everything look good and happy and pretty, right? So, for example, if it's an outdoor event, you would want maybe a child, an old person, and a dog in beautiful afternoon light, all looking happy with a sponsor sign right here, you know? So from the street photography came out of that because you take the pretty picture that the company wants to see, because that's why you eat. They give you money for this. And they go, yes, thank you very much. But at the same time, over there, there's an old lady slapping a child. And over there, there's a dog peeing on the sponsor's sign. You take that picture too. You don't give it to the client, but you put it away for yourself. And from that, the outtakes, the careful bad pictures, that's where my street photography came. And then, so that's sort of how I developed sort of these two brains. There's the happy, pretty brain for a living, and the not quite so happy, odd, unusual brain for myself. And that's where my street photography came from. Then shifting, in 1996, I met the woman who became my wife. In 97, I moved with her to England, where we married. And there, I just really found myself in a new place, new country, everything was different. And how do you come to grips with a new home? I took pictures. I just walked the streets all day, doing errands and doing things, and took pictures, and it was all street photography. And then I met some other photographers in London, and we formed the In Public Collective, the first international street photography collective in 2000, and I was one of the first members. And then I became known for street photography. Through the influence of my colleagues, I think my photography grew. I read more about other photographers of this genre, and the pictures got better, and I became more well known until by the time, and then I began to show it at photo festivals around Europe and became well known. And that's really what happened. And then when I moved back to New York in 2008, I just continued to do it. But New York has a different feel to London. London to me was romantic and beautiful, which always surprises people in England, but it was to me. And if you see those pictures, they are romantic, they're beautiful in a traditional sense. New York is not beautiful. New York is harsh, it is crazy, it is neurotic, it's everybody just boom, 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 all the time. And it never stops. It's never quiet. And so the pictures from New York that you can see in the Carvassal exhibition or on anywhere you look me up are very different in feel. They are intense, they're neurotic. I switched to color, which is much harder than black and white because to do well.
Which one do you prefer?
I prefer both. I have both. It came from, in my PR days, you know, this is the days of film. If you wanted color in black and white, you carry two cameras. And you have your black and white camera and your color camera. And you think differently because some things are color pictures and some things are black and white pictures. So I use them for different things. I think when I'm feeling perhaps more critical, I would tend to do that in black and white. But generally, the switch to color was really important because I did it at a fairly late age, and it was a way of re-energizing myself and giving myself a new challenge because it is hard. Doing color street photography, people say, oh, well, that's what we see. Yeah, and it's really, there's so much more that can go wrong in color. So right now I'm just deep into it and have been since really 2010. And I don't know how much longer I'll be really intense in it, but I've started pulling a little black and white film back out again. I don't like the look of, this is a personal prejudice because I'm an old black and white printer. I don't like the look of color digital converted to black and white. I like, in black and white, I do it on film. In color, I'm happy to do it digitally because I can make my own color prints. So I think I'm running down now. So in the last couple of years, it began with, in public, I've begun to do street photography workshops and teaching people what makes a really good street photograph, which is not the same as a picture on the street. Those are two, most of what you will find are pictures on the street. To be a street photograph, it has to have all the same compositional elements, action, gesture, a look, something that ties it all together, just like all the best photojournalism you're seeing all around Tbilisi right now. It has to have the same, only it's not a story. It's just moments of everyday reality. The best way to put it is teaching people to see the unusual in the everyday. Now, for example, today in the workshop that we just had our first session, we talked about the history of street photography, techniques, ways of approaching, dealing with the world. And then I gave them an assignment. And the assignment was, go outside, right here in the street, stand in one place for half an hour, and watch what happens all around you while you don't move, and take pictures. And then go to one more place for half an hour and stay there and do the same thing, which is much harder than you might think. And they all came back with something. And most of them had never done anything like that before. And it was a really good challenge. And that's exciting, to make people see something more than what they thought they could do. And I love doing that. That's really fun.